What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another adventure here at the Outpost. In today's adventure, we are diving deep into some of my favorite writers working in Hollywood today. For anybody who doesn't know me, which is pretty much most of you out there, writing is my absolute passion in life. It is my driving force. It is what gives me reason to live every day. That's right. I've loved writing ever since I was about like 13 years old, and I've been doing it ever since. It is one of the favorite things about my day is working on screenwriting and novels and pretty much just any type of storytelling. And some of my favorite writers are still working today. And so in this series, I would like to dive into a writer in each episode and rank and talk about his movies. And I could think of no better introduction to this series than one of my personal favorite writers, who is also a writer-director, and that is none other than Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, bam, 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 bam.
My fucking hero. You shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize.
Hey, what's going on?
Now, I should preface this by saying that I do not in any way, shape, or form dislike any of Quentin Tarantino's movies. I am a huge fan of every single one of them. I don't think he's made a bad movie yet. So that pretty much makes this list very hard to make. So one of the movies has to come in last place. And the movie that falls in that regard is Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's first movie. This movie is by no means bad. This movie is incredible. I love the way that he plays with time and linear format storytelling. It is a wonder how he weaves patterns and stories and brings them back into each other. Every character in this movie is so awesome. Just the way that he pretty much integrated a whole new style of filmmaking when this movie came out. Like just the way in which characters talk and discuss. Like never really before have you seen movies really bring up other movies. So just the way that he kind of defined pop culture into our movies, which is such a huge thing in movies today. It's incredible that it started with this little crime movie. I think what makes it come in last place for me is basically down to his directing. You can really feel that he's just like finding his legs here, and like this is very much a learning curve for him. Like there are some scenes with some really standout shots, and just the way the camera work moves, and some scenes is so indicative of how incredible he would go on to become. But there's also a few scenes where the camera is very staticky and just kind of stays in place and lingers, and it's not the worst thing. But you can definitely feel the auteurish aspect of his career the most in this movie. But other than that, this is a flawless movie. Michael Madsen's insanely awesome in it. Harvey Keitel, Steve Buscemi's incredible. Tim Roth, everyone's just firing on all cylinders. And I really wish I was as much of a collector of movies back then as I was today, because this is a really cool cover. Like it's got the sweet Mr. Pink style that if you open it up has some of his quotes with some pictures, and then it has like his code name, his job, and then a little description about him. So I would imagine that all four of these characters got versions of these back when they came out, and I really wish I had snagged them all. It's probably, I should look around. It's probably a good find to find the rest of these today somewhere out there. If anyone's got the other colors, you let me know. You got a beat on it, you let me know. Up next is actually a movie that is my least watched Tarantino movie, and that is Jackie Brown. I don't know why it's my least watched. It's a phenomenal movie. Robert De Niro and Samuel L. Jackson, especially in this movie, are freaking fantastic. And of course, Pam Grier as the star, like, is phenomenal. But for whatever reason, I've really only watched this movie like 2 or 3 times, where all of his other ones I've watched dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And I don't know why that is. Can't really tell you. But for whatever reason, this movie is still incredibly well told. He really is just a master writer in this movie. And this is probably his most, I want to say, toned down of him as like he normally is. Maybe that's why I watch it less than the other ones. He's adapting somebody else's work here. He definitely makes it his own, and it still has all those Quentin flourishes. But I don't know. I guess I just prefer his more genre showings, where like he really dives down into like this one specific genre that he deconstructs, and he kind of does it with this one in a bit, since it's kind of like a blaxploitation film. But I don't know. It feels like, I want to say, the most accessible maybe Quentin Tarantino movie out there. I think it's one that like anybody really can get in there. Like the violence of a lot of his movies turn people off, but I feel like this one isn't as overtly violent as some of his other ones are. So I guess it's an easier one to stomach for mainstream people, and I guess maybe that's what leads me to some of his other movies more than that. And this movie especially, it was like his last. Like I feel like the first half of his career was very crime oriented with more mainstream accessible movies, and then in the second half of his career, he's just gone like head deep into genre filmmaking, and he is just banging out these incredibly violent and epic action filled genre movies that tend to turn a lot of people off. Next up is the Quentin Tarantino Western, The Hateful Eight. I fucking love this movie. It is such a statement and so impressive when writers are able to do the one location movie and make it as thrilling and amazing as this is. Just having the balls to sit down and go, all right, I'm going to make a story about 8 strangers in a room. Go. And making it as good as this is just a testament to his creative flourishes and just how good he is as a writer. He gives every actor in this movie such a stage to play with. Everyone's amazing. Kurt Russell, Samuel L. Jackson, Jennifer Jason Leigh, just all the way down. This movie is a phenomenal testament to his ability, and it's so much fun to watch. It also helps that Westerns are one of my favorite genres, so I equally love this movie just because it is set in one of my favorite genres to play in, and that is the Western. There isn't really much bad I could say about this movie. The runtime is a little on the long side, but when it has such good dialogue as this, it's really not a detraction. I guess the only thing I could possibly comment on would be the flashback. I get why you need it. I get why it's there. I understand it. I understand why he did it. The only thing I could say is that I was so invested in the main story as it was playing out that to take away the heat from that and to bring us down and bring us into the past, it just it feels a little unnecessary at times. But that's such a small nitpick because that scene in the past is just so good that whatever damage it does do, it rewards back tenfold. This is just such a well-written movie. If you haven't seen The Hateful Eight, go watch The Hateful Eight. What I mostly expect people's least favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is my next pick, and that is Death Proof. Got this sweet, awesome steelbook cover for it. I get why people aren't as turned on by this movie as other ones, but I definitely think that they're missing out because this movie is just bangerang. I love that it's told in 2 halves, where they pretty much use the first half to set up Stuntman Mike and how he preys on these types of women, and then using the second half to completely flip that on its side and show us a group of women that are not going to go down as easy as Stuntman Mike would hope. This movie is just a fucking lot of fun. Kurt Russell is phenomenal as Stuntman Mike. All the girls are great. They all play their parts to perfection. But, the real star of this movie is those fucking car chases at the end. And he puts on one hell of a fucking car chase. And special attention must go out to Zoe Bell, the stunt woman who does most of the car crash work. It is absolutely fear-inducing watching that movie, knowing all the shit that she did to make that movie what it is. So the absolute camera work the stunt work, and Quentin's writing just make this an absolute slam dunk for me. So maybe give it another chance if you weren't the biggest fan of Death Proof. You might be proven wrong this time. Tarantino's latest movie drops next on this list as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This movie is a fucking phenomenally good time, set in the 1960s as we follow Rick fucking Dalton and his stunt double traverse an industry that they start to no longer understand or feel that they're washed up in. This is a really just fun movie. It is just such a fun, like, day in the life type movie, even though it's not just one day, it extends over a period of time. This still just feels like such like a day in the life movie. It is so great. Leo and Brad Pitt are freaking phenomenal in this movie. Just like they play their characters to absolute perfection, and watching this like buddy movie of these two guys traversing this world and appreciating their friendship with each other is just, it's such a beautiful thing. And the ending of this movie is absolute bangerang, batshit crazy. I know he just released the novelization of this movie, Quentin himself, and I'm definitely going to be going to Barnes & Nobles to pick that up because I would love to see how he puts pen to paper in novel form. I think he could be a very interesting novelist in that regard, so I'm super excited to go check that out. Tarantino's first shot as a Western drops up next as Django Unchained. This movie is so much fun. I freaking love Westerns, man. If I haven't said it enough, I'll say it 1,000 more times. I love Westerns, and this is one of the best Westerns ever made. It is a great freaking spaghetti Western. Everyone is in top form. Quentin Tarantino writes some of the best characters he's ever written in this movie, especially in the form of Calvin Candy, played by Leo DiCaprio, and I forget fucking Christoph Waltz's name in the movie, the dentist, but he is also phenomenal. Just two amazing written characters in this movie. Jimmy Fox also holds up incredibly well as Django, but he's kind of like the straight man in this world, so he's not playing as ostentatious a character as the other two. But he is freaking phenomenal with what he has to work with. The whole entire second half of this movie at the Candyland Mansion is just such good fucking writing. The whole dinner scene especially, like Leo, Jamie Foxx, Christoph Waltz, Kerry Washington, everyone in that scene, Samuel L. Jackson, just freaking bring the heat, really bringing to life his words and making just that scene pop in such a phenomenal way. The violence is, for it always a Tarantino movie, absolute balls to the walls, insane. The way people go flying about when they get shot in this movie is unreal, incredible. I freaking love it. I also love the usage of old Ennio Morricone songs in here. They're played to perfection in the parts that he used them for. Everything about this movie is just a fucking slam dunk. I enjoy this movie so much. I love returning to it. I loved reading the script for this movie. Just the way that he wrote on the page to bring these characters to life is just so phenomenal. Pulp Fiction pretty much rewrote the book on crime thrillers. Every movie after this wanted to be Pulp Fiction, wanted to emulate Pulp Fiction, just wanted to have some of the success that this movie oozed. And some of them are really good, but none of them are able to match the creative mayhem of this movie simply because none of them are Quentin Tarantino. The way that this movie plays out in non-linear format is an ingenious screenwriting technique. He plays it to absolute perfection. He just knows how to tell these wildly bonkers stories that have humor, action. They just bring you through the gamut of everything you're supposed to feel. They really truly feel like what you should get out of a movie. They're just fun. They don't bother with like the real world mechanics. They're just like, the dude just knows. He just knows, man. He's phenomenal. And it's a shame that we're only going to get one more movie out of him because he is a director and a writer unlike any other. And this is the movie that really put him on the map with that. Everyone in this movie is freaking great. All the scenes are great. The way the movie just progresses, is just peeling back layers is great. It's balls to the walls crazy, and I fucking love this movie. Since he only counts it as one movie, I will only present it as one movie, and that is Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. this is him in his most genre-filled blood fest, just freaking chewing the scenery. Like these are so freaking good, man. I fucking love these movies. From like, it's just like I don't even know where to begin on how much I love them. I love that since he had to split it into two parts, that he was able to build two genres out of them. And I don't know if this is how it would have played if we watched it as all one movie, if it would kind of have that switch as it went. But to help him differentiate the two movies and use this style of format, where the first one is kind of like a martial arts action film and the second one is pretty much just a revenge western, is incredible that he was able to balance those two tones out of these two movies. Even though he filmed it all as once, expecting it to be one movie, it's just the testament to how good he is. I tend to prefer Volume 2 a little bit more than Volume 1, of course, because I've already said it twice here. I love Westerns. And this one and the second one feels very Western-y to it, and I really just love everything that happens with her training with Pao Mei and the entire ending with Bill. It's just this one gets the edge for me, but they're both equally just as good. Everything in the first one that she deals with Omer and Ichi is just insane. The whole anime middle of the movie is bonkers. There's just this movie. I would love to get a release of this whole thing in one bloody cut. I think that would be freaking incredible, and I don't care how long it is. You can literally just put these two movies together and recut it around how you would have had it as one movie, and I'll watch a 5-hour movie of this. I don't care. I'll do it. Give it to me. But there can only be one, and for you Quentin Tarantino fans out there, it should come as no surprise to what that one is. And my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is Inglorious Bastards. This just takes everything that's great about Quentin Tarantino's writing and throws it into a World War II movie. And that to me is just incredible. Everything is on, like, just his A game in this movie. Like, there's the part at the end when he puts the swastika into Hans Landa's face, and right at the camera, he just smugly goes, "I think this may be my masterpiece." And you're goddamn right it is, Quentin. Like, Hans Landa is the best character you've ever created. Christoph Waltz brought that character to life in the most amazing ways. Their collaboration together on that character has to be one of the best collaborations between director and actor that we've seen in probably the last, like, 20, 30 years. Brad Pitt is hilariously over the top as the Southern Army captain. Everything about the Bastards is insane. Stiglitz, I think his name is, the fucking nuts guy. Michael Fassbender, all of them are just, like, so freaking good. And the scenes in this movie, they're just so chock full of all the, like, great pieces of dialogue that he's known for. The opening scene, using the Ennio Morricone music, building of Hans Landa, everything, the way that unfolds is freaking incredible. The scene in the basement, where they're trying to infiltrate and they end up being caught by some other Germans, and he blows his cover without doing the German 3. That scene is just so beautifully written, and it's just so subtly menacing. It's phenomenal. Everything about this movie is so good. Shoshana, it's just a phenomenal movie of his revenge fantasy, like a World War II revenge fantasy. It's amazing. Like, it's so. It also reminds me, like, back of, like, when they used to make the World War II movies that didn't always have to be so, like, overtly sad and real and intense. Like Saving Private Ryan and all of those movies. I mean, I love those movies. They're amazing. But there's also something to be said for movies like Where Eagles Dare, and Kelly's Heroes, which are more just like genre movies set during World War II, which is a very interesting, like, little niche genre of its own. And Quentin Tarantino just saw that and freaking made it masterfully in Inglorious Bastards. And it is, I think, one of the best thing he's written. I love reading the screenplay for this. I read the screenplay a lot, actually, whenever I'm looking for ways to beef up my scenes and help with my dialogue, because just reading the way that he structures those scenes, especially that we spoke of before, just shows how he builds tension and just how much of a master craftsman it takes of where he decides to sprinkle in like the description along with as the dialogue beats run down, because he's one that like his dialogue goes on and on and on. So to find those spots where he breaks up with description, it's just very interesting to read that and see how he decides like when it's time to drop that line in there and when it's time to take focus off of that or move on to this or that. It's just, he is an absolute craftsman. And that's my list. I am a huge genre fan. You know, my favorite genres are westerns, science fiction, crime thrillers. So I really like find my niche market in that genre realm. So it's great to have a writer-director like this who is just so balls deep into genre writing that he makes these stories. So it's very helpful in my own writing career to read his scripts and to watch his movies and to break his movies down and to see just what makes them so good and what makes that dialogue pop so well. That helps me in my own writing, because I'm one that I'm very, not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm very good at coming up with story structures and figuring out the beats of how my story would go. And I was always worried that my dialogue was very cringy and bad and was too one-dimensional and surface level and didn't have enough subtext or anything like that. And it wasn't until after reading some of Quentin Tarantino's scripts and working on dialogue of my own, trying to put my own unique spin on it, that I got better at it. And actually now, like when I submit things in for scripts or when I submit things in to get feedback on, the dialogue is consistently something that people say is one of my strong suits. And I wholly attribute Quentin Tarantino to that, because just like the way he writes dialogue and reading his dialogue and saying it out loud to myself when I'm reading it and getting to understand that flow really helped me in my own writing. So for anyone out there who is writing or, you know, just likes to learn more about cinema history and wants to watch one of the great auteurs of his day, definitely check out Quentin Tarantino's scripts and check out any Quentin Tarantino movie you haven't seen, because you're in for an absolute goddamn treat. But that'll do it for us here at The Outpost. So until the next adventure, stay safe and adventure on.